What down, family? It's your boy SNTV, back at y'all with another video. And this one right here is going to be my first episode of Chicago Legends. It's been highly requested. We understand that there's a lot more legends that are in Chicago that are not necessarily identified with the drill scene. Street Legends is more dealing with, legends that come out of the drill scene era. This episode is on Al Capone, aka Scarface. I've definitely felt the need to do this video because Scarface is actually one of the first gangsters that was in Chicago, especially doing the things that he was doing. Scarface is from New York. He's Brooklyn to be exact. He, grew up in Brooklyn. He was doing his thing in Brooklyn. And when he was 19, what he did was he moved to Chicago, him and his girlfriend. Now, Scarface was born in 1899, so you could just imagine. I mean, there was no technology or nothing like that. You got all of your respect, out of the streets, and it came from word of mouth. Scarface came up under a guy that went by the last name of Torrio. Okay, now this is who groomed Scarface. He seen that Scarface was smart, and he also was business savvy. Plus, he had the ability to be ruthless. But not only that, he had a lot of influential ability. So therefore, he can make people do things that he wanted them to do. So Scarface moves to Chicago. Now, around the time the Scarface moves to Chicago, the prohibition, the prohibition game is, is very lucrative. Police are, they've outlawed alcohol, but they're not cracking down on it at this point. So you can only imagine, some of these Italian mob families and some of these Jews actually became billionaires dealing with prohibition. Some of them reportedly, especially dealing with Al Capone in the streets, some of them reportedly making $105 million to $120 million in 1 year. You know what I'm saying? So you can only imagine, think about that in today's money. That actually will be running a well-tuned corporation. Everybody's seeing that prohibition, you know what I'm saying, and dealing with this alcohol is the way to go. It's how they're going to, go to the next level and expand and make their money. Al Capone, he's ruthless and he's moving up in rank. But there's a guy that goes by the name of Big Jim Colosimo. He doesn't want to go that route. He sees that, he doesn't want to modernize, his ways are working. Of course, Torrio had to get rid of Colosimo, and that's exactly what happened. He had Al Capone to send one of his hitters. It goes by the name of Frankie Yale. He had him to go see Big Jim. So they got him out of the way, and then they started to expand. Okay, after this happened, Torrio got locked up. So when Torrio got locked up, it was like basically free reign. Mind you, at this time, the outfit had 50% of the politicians and the judicial system and the government basically dealing with the Chicago area in his pocket. Also, he had a lot of other officers in different areas in his pocket too, like officers in Cicero and officers in Chicago Heights. Al Capone began to take the enterprise to the next level. He was the type of person, you could kind of bargain with Al Capone, because Al Capone wasn't necessarily he was ruthless in a sense, but in a sense he wasn't, because Al Capone would give you a chance to get out of his way. If you was in Al Capone way, what he would do is he would try to pay you off. And if you wouldn't take the payoff, that's when Al Capone will put a hit on you. You see what I'm saying? Now, either way is messed up because, this man is still putting a hit out on somebody. But one thing I can say about him, he wasn't just, I'm just going to do this. He gave you chance after chance. When you didn't take the chance, he had to do what he had to do. We still dealing with the streets. That was a situation that happened. One of Al Capone's guys got into it with another guy. And he roughed him up or whatever. So Al Capone went and hit this guy in the head with a 6-shooter all 6 times. You see what I'm saying? He ended up taking him out. Also, there was another hit that, this hit was on an official, actually, And Al Capone could never get convicted, so they really wanted Al Capone. But the reason why Al Capone could never get convicted because there wasn't 12 people that were going to be willing to take an Al Capone case. You see what I'm saying? Primarily because of how vicious his reputation was in the streets. Not only that, having judges paid off, lawyers, the DAs. Al Capone would pay off anybody that he could to, prevent a problem or to get rid of a problem. I think that the downfall of Al Capone came in around 1929 when he sent some of his henchmen to kill a guy by the name of Bugs Moran. But Bugs Moran just so happened never showed up, and 7 of his henchmen ended up getting killed. Now, at the time, Herbert Hoover was actually being elected into office. As soon as he comes into office, he inherits this, the Chicago problem. Chicago is lawless. Something needs to be done about Chicago. And Al Capone is the number one name that he's hearing. So he kept getting on his establishment about bringing Al Capone down. So what ended up happening was they ended up getting Al Capone on 22 charges of tax evasion. And what that did was they locked Al Capone up for 11 years. So while Al Capone was locked up, I mean, if you've ever been locked up, and then I know for sure back then the conditions were horrible. But if you've ever been locked up back then, you know that the medical services and the conditions of prison are unbearable. Well, he actually had caught syphilis before he got locked up. Al Capone used to, he was over like a couple brothels and things of that nature. So, he was always dealing with hookers. Okay, so while he was locked up, what happened was his syphilis began to get worse because it wasn't being treated. After he got out in 1939. He died in 1947. So the 8 years that he was out, he was actually dealing with the effects of what syphilis had did to him. The syphilis had started making him lose his mind and things of that nature. So in a sense, he was actually dead before he died. He had lost his mind. I think that what we can learn about the life and times and actually the demise of Al Capone is that it's not always necessary to be loud. Sometimes you gotta pump the brakes. Sometimes you gotta do things the smart way because you never know who's watching. You never know, what's gonna come of things. Now, he underestimated the system because he felt like he could pay his way out of everything. And they showed him that, no, you can't pay your way out of everything. You see what I'm saying? Once you do so much and you get on the radar of the feds, they will find any way to get you. So I think that like John Gotti is like a modern day Al Capone. You see what I'm saying? Like he was like the Al Capone in the 80s. You see what I'm saying? Like this happens. People get clout, they get that name, and then they forget that everything that they're doing is illegal. So then when the feds get on you, it's so many different ways that they can knock you off to the point to where you can't cover everything. He did 11 years in prison and he ended up getting out 8 years before he actually died. But he was actually one of the criminals that I consider, at the end of the day, he died of natural causes. Well, not necessarily natural causes, but, a disease. But, I mean, he didn't die from a bullet in his head. You see what I'm saying? And he actually died in, it was either in Miami or Palm Beach, in one of his mansions. So, he did good, for as that sense. But at the end of the day, it's like we start making money and we start, feeling like we just own, we untouchable. You never untouchable. By the way, it was a good movie, but it was definitely a lie. It had some good actors in it too. I think Sean Connery, Robert De Niro, Kevin Costner. So yeah, it was a good movie. If you haven't seen it, you might, definitely need to go see it. But actually, The only thing the Untouchables did was raided Al Capone a few times. You know what I'm saying? And he did actually, tried to get them killed, but that was just Al Capone. I mean, we dealing with a guy that tried to get the president killed also. So, there you have it. This was something different that I decided to do. I'm also going to do my Kings of the Game videos once a month. Also, and then I'm gonna make them like an hour long. That's why I'm gonna do them, once a month. I'm gonna make them like real documentaries. Also, I'm gonna be doing my Chirac Street Legends twice a week, and I'm gonna also make them longer. I'm gonna have a lot of new material coming out for y'all, man. So y'all just be looking forward to it. It's your boy SNTV. I'm out.